first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
Safety and security notice, please watch out for comments like this by scammers pretending to be me or other crypto YouTubers. Also, please follow me on bittube.video. You can also follow me on Odyssey. These are both censorship-resistant platforms, and every now and then I am going to post a video which isn't going to be on YouTube. Find me on these platforms. Now, can you, in a nutshell, could you say what is the deal between Britain and Basel III? And then we can carry on.
Sure. I'll try and explain this really quickly. Britain is caught in the middle. Gordon Brown sold all your gold reserves at Brown's bottom, $242, $244 an ounce. You guys have no gold reserves. You have no way to pull the pound and make it an independent actor within the global financial system. You are now completely at the mercy of the monetary policy of the other major central banks. And the Bank of England today is a marginal central bank. Okay, so what's the big Titanic fight that's happening right now? What's Basel III all about? So it's all about the net stable funding ratio and how that changes the allocation, how the banks account for their exposure to gold and other assets, but primarily gold in this case, on their balance sheets. And allocated physical gold will no longer carry any kind of discount. It's held at par. Gold trades for $18.25 an ounce. You can hold it on your books at $18.25 an ounce, and it will count towards your reserve calculations as to whether or not you have enough reserves and are meeting all the regulations. Unallocated gold, otherwise known as paper gold, otherwise known as the gold that's held at the LBMA and the COMEX in an unallocated pool account, which they then use, they write paper futures contracts against, that is being set to zero. And any gold that you hold in backing those is given at least a 15% haircut in terms of its valuation because of its volatility. This is being set up. This Basel III is something that needs to happen because everybody around the world outside of the West has been adding gold to their reserves since China announced the rise of their gold reserves back in the middle of June of 2010, where they came out and said we have 1,054 tons of gold. That, by the way, is what's really sparked the blow off top in the gold market, and we started seeing central bank buying for the first time in 30 years. Now, with central banks accounting for about 15% of annual gold demand. Right, Hungary just bought a bunch. Thailand just bought a bunch. Serbia buys every month. Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan buy a bunch every month. And then obviously the Russians and the Chinese, who only tell us about the 20% of what they only publicly disclose about 20% of what they actually buy. That's my personal opinion on that. The reality is that Europe, in order for Europe to get out of this mess that they're in, right, their sovereign bond debt cannot lower in price. They can't allow the euro to drop. Because if they do, then people will carry trades with the yen and the dollar and other currencies will unwind, and interest rates will have to rise, and the ECB won't be able to monetize it without the rates rising. If rates rise, bond prices fall, and the value of all these bonds that are sitting on the ECB's balance sheet drops like a rock. Because right now, European sovereign debt makes up somewhere between 55 and 60% of the entire ECB balance sheet. Okay? Now, if the sovereign debt crisis begins in Europe again, the ECB goes bankrupt. Mm-hmm. How do you stave off bankruptcy? Mm-hmm. By forcing the gold suppression scheme through the rehypothecation and creation of paper gold as a liquidity tool to hedge dollar flows, by collapsing that market and allowing the physical price of gold to set the market and demand outstrip supply. The physical price of gold should be the price setter, which should easily move the price into, add a zero to the price of gold.
Right, because you've got European gold with Germany, Italy, France.
Right, because the ECB controls around 10,000 tons of gold. Now, people have yelled at me and said, well, they don't. Italy owns their gold. Like, really? Mario Draghi is the prime minister of Italy, and you think Italy owns its 2,450 tons of gold? Yeah, okay. So pull the other leg of plays, jingle bells, and please stop telling everybody in public just how freaking naive you are. Okay, so now we get back to brass tacks and reality. You've got all of that gold will eventually be transferred, to the ECB under physical control. If they do nothing else than to settle all the Target 2 imbalances, OMT, all these other alphabet versions of QE that Draghi put in place when he was president of the ECB. Now, all that's happening. Macron comes out and says, hey, the G7 nations should sell their gold to the ECB or to the IMF in order to issue new bonds to rebuild Africa post-COVID. The IMF came out this week and said, we've got $650 billion in relief aid for COVID. You can't see the play here. Like, you can't put one and one together and get two. Well, in this case, three. Like, it's crazy. It's so very obvious what they're moving to do. So, because the goal is to get rid of the euro, trash the whole thing, because they're going to have to let the bonds go anyway. But in order to keep the system from collapsing, and in order to buy them the time necessary for the China-U.S. war that they're trying to stoke to beat everybody down, we let the price of gold rise, which also puts pressure on the Federal Reserve, who wants to continue to have a low price of gold. They're intimately a part of the European suppression scheme on this, the gold suppression scheme on this, because why? The Fed holds their gold on their balance sheet at $42.22 an ounce. If the Fed were to revalue gold and market to market, 1815, 1900, 2000, or whatever, that would signal that the entire U.S. financial system is a lie. Okay? The Fed can't do that. Mm-hmm. So now that we're in this rock and hard place.
This is brilliant, by the way. This is so clear. And by that, what you mean is that the dollar has no real value.
Well, none of these currencies have any real value, other than the extractive nature of the tax base, other than the extractive nature of the tax policy of the local governments and their ability to point guns at us and say, you owe us this on April 15th or whenever it is that you guys pay taxes, which is all year long. Like, that's it. It's always been that. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it always has been that. And it always will be that until we say, no, we want to bear our asset as our reserve currency, meaning Bitcoin, gold. Pick a cryptocurrency that's proof of work based, blah, 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 blah. We can have that that's a different conversation for a different morning. So to put the final bow on this, there's a functional split between.
One second, please. I'm just being interrupted.
This to put a final bow on this. It's important here is to understand that there is a functional split between the Fed on the one side and the ECB on the other. One needs a higher gold price. One wants a lower gold price. And when you factor in some of the other aspects of the Great Reset and the World Economic Forum's plans, you realize that there's no need for commercial banks, there's no need for all of this, and that the power is to be transferred from Wall Street to Frankfurt and cut even London out and Wall Street out. And as far as I can see, London and Wall Street are kicking their heels up and digging their heels in and saying, look, no, that's just not going to happen. And this is why, and I've talked about this at length, this is why I think Powell raised interest rates, raised what he pays on reverse repo contracts by 5 basis points to drain liquidity, not from American money markets, which that hasn't happened, but from European and overseas money markets. And we can see that very subtly throughout all the markets right now, certainly in the equity markets, the differences between U.S. assets and foreign assets, emerging market assets and whatnot, China, that there's a distinct lack of inflow happening as everybody moves into tangible assets, right, and is trying to get away from debt. Stocks are being bid up around the world, but some are being bid up at a faster rate than others, and U.S. assets are outpacing everybody else's assets. And then there's going to be rotations out of various markets. So we'll drain the emerging markets first, then we'll drain the bigger markets like China and the European Union, and eventually that's all going to go flow to the United States. The Fed is not going to roll the dollar over for a bunch of European, German eugenicists. The Fed's not. The U.S. banking system isn't. The Biden administration, that's a different discussion.
Right.
So
and then also,
I'll leave it there. Okay.
And then also, if Rishi Sunak or Sajid Javid or Kwasi Kwarteng replace Boris Johnson, they'll sell out the UK. There may be. Yeah,
that actually, interestingly enough, we denigrated these guys earlier as being part of City of London, trying to undermine Boris Johnson. But to be honest with you, you may need a City of London guy to come in and help the UK get through this. I've been saying that I've been blowing my patrons' minds by saying our best ally right now may be Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve, and this is coming from a dyed-in-the-wool anarcho-libertarian Austrian. But this is my read of the game board. Politics makes strange bedfellows, and geopolitics makes the strangest bedfellows of all. So,
okay, all right, thank you. And I know, Tom, you wanted to say something about the World Economic Forum. Do you want to make that point?
It was Alex that wanted to make that.
No, I just wanted, the point which I made, which is a very brief one, which goes back to the history.
Right.
When it was set up, which is in 1971 by Klaus Schwab in Davos, bringing together all the people who were already coming to Davos, its original name was actually the European Economic Management Forum. Okay, so it was brought together. The initial drive of it's brought together to talk about various things, to develop pan-European policies, and of course in 71 it was the beginning of the drive towards what was at that time called economic and monetary union. It's very much connected with all of it.
Happened in 1971, Alex.
71. So 71, this is starts. 79, you now start getting the ERM set up.
Alex, you missed my question. What else happened in 1971? What other
what else happened?
I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Exactly,
it had something to do with gold, I think.
Gold,
yeah,
exactly.
August 15th, 1971, when yes, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
It became the World Economic Forum in the late 1980s, and that was when it suddenly, because at that point they sensed that the Soviet Union was starting to fade with Gorbachev. Sure. And there was America was becoming very integrated. They thought to broaden their position at that point. But it was essentially it was the old money European elite meeting together in Davos in the middle of their skiing holidays. They were all coming together, and they were all coming to talk and plot, because that's what these
and honestly, if you really think about it from their point of view, and this is one of the things you have to do when you do geopolitics, right? Is you always have to, if you want to beat your opponent, you have to always think about, what does he want? Where is he going? What are his motivations for doing this? And unfortunately, you have to get into the head of Emperor Palpatine, right? And it's a scary place. And it's a terrible place, and that's why I'm going to get done with this and go game for the afternoon and escape from all this craziness. Because otherwise, I lose my soul in having to analyze these people. And I recommend everybody who does this that you always take a certain amount of time away from all of this. It's very important. You get back into nature, do whatever you're going to do. So when you look at it from their point of view, dude, they just want their colonies back.
Yeah. I
mean, they're really angry that they lost control of the world after the formation of the Bank of England. Let's not kid ourselves here. This is who people are, and that money that they have stretches back that far, and their lineages and their dynasties and all the rest of it, and it's just makes sense to me. And we Americans don't see things this way because we don't have a dynastic system, so it's very hard for us to come to that conclusion because we don't think this way, right?
And of course, it has tremendous glamour. I mean, if you go, you see these people in their chateaus and then elegant clothes and their artworks and all of this thing. Because it all stretches back, and of course the other thing that comes with it. So this is important always to remember, is that people who are brought up in that way not only have a tremendous belief in their own superiority over other people, but they always believe themselves to be far cleverer than other people, and they are very often, having encountered many of these people in actual life, I can tell you something, they're nowhere near as clever as they think they are. But that doesn't make them feel that they're not, and it doesn't mean that they won't try. So they're exactly the sort of people who come up with these utopian plans and idealistic plans. They've done it many times in the past, and it's entirely in character.
Right. No, it's quite frustrating to watch this play out because it's just a convocation of midwits with a lot of power.
Yeah, they are clever at one thing, which is power. That's what they understand. They understand how to gain power and retain it. And the great mistake the United States made, if I can just quickly come back into history, after the Second World War, was because it wanted the support of old Europe, as it saw it, to keep the Soviet Union at bay. It didn't clear them all out, which it could quite easily have done in the 1940s and 50s. Believe me, it was the opportunity was absolutely there, but they didn't do it because they thought they needed these people to keep the Soviets at bay. And the result was that they survived and they prospered, and here we are. And of course, they've never really been friends of the United States, because, of course, from their point of view, the United States is this unwashed, dirty democracy, which we don't really approve of at all.
And a vast wealth of natural resources to be exploited.
Yeah, absolutely.
And same thing with Russia's the same way to that.
Oh, Russia was barbarous.
Yeah, well, they're a bunch of barbarous Slavs.
Barbarous Slavs, exactly.
It just needed
Okay, so that's great. So that lays out what's happening in Europe and the US and Britain's role in it.
Sure.
You wanted to, I think you mentioned earlier Greece, and then I you back. So how does this time with what's happening with the protests in Greece and France and elsewhere in Europe?
Well, can I just say, first of all, I mean, I have a particular, obviously, feelings about Greece because I am Greek, and I was born there. And we have, Greece is an absolute colony of Davos, if I could put it this way. And it's been used by Davos very much as its experiment, its petri dish, when a lot of these things are now being implemented, because the political system in Greece is basically owned. It's not at all responsive anymore to the people of the country. So obviously we've had incredible economic policies, utterly ludicrous economic policies. Well, not so much ludicrous, it's utterly destructive of the fabric of Greek society, which has been smashed. Yeah, we see all the apparatus that you were talking about in Britain, Rich, being reproduced in Greece too. And we've also had an absolutely outrageous address to the Greek people by the Greek Prime Minister, Mr. Mitsotakis, who is absolutely elite, Greek elite and European elite. And he's somebody who is regularly invited to Davos, by the way. He's very much part of that world, in which he said that, some Greeks are not doing their job by refusing to vaccinate in the way that they should. And this is, in fact, the reason why we might have more lockdowns, and Greece will not be held to ransom by those people. In other words, he was setting Greeks against Greeks, and this in a country which has had a recent history of civil war, which overshadowed all my childhood, and where we've had, within very living memory, I mean, I remember it, I lived through it, a Greek dictatorship, and where people still feel deeply, the partisan feelings are always very strong, and where political polarization is very great. So he has intentionally gone about intensifying it. So the situation in Greece could not be more grim or more ominous. And obviously there's protests, there's now talk about long-running strikes, when the Greek people have been very beaten up over the last couple of years and very demoralized, but this has inflamed them. And they've been protesting very strongly in Greece over the last few days. And I'm hearing that this is likely to continue and may actually grow. So we could very well see social protests in Greece escalate to an almost uncontrollable level, but without anything within the political system that will respond to this. On the contrary, what you will see in Greece is that the more the protests grow, the more the political system, the political elite, will unite against the protests. They still control the security services. They still control the monetary system, the financial system. And, I can see very severe escalation and crackdowns in Greece.
Oh, well, then at some point, something's got to give. Either the people get crushed or the security services, they switch sides.
Well, in Greece, I have to say, I don't think there's any chance that the security services are going to switch sides. But if you're talking about Europe as a whole, then it's a completely different story. Because remember, Greece is very small and very easily controlled. Other countries in Europe are much bigger. France, Italy, Spain, Germany, they're all much bigger. And the protests that you see in Greece will have then inevitably, well, they're already very active in France. There's already, lots of opposition in Spain. The people that we're talking about, the elites we're talking about, are very adept and skilled at retaining control. But my own feeling is that they've overreached, that their utopian project is altogether too utopian. And I say this many times, that sooner or later it will all crack and break down. Now, Tom, in our last program, made this extraordinarily interesting comment that the Austrians are very good at predicting things, everything except the date. And I feel exactly the same way about myself when it comes to Europe. The breakdown, I am certain, will come. I'm always astonished at the skill these people have in managing to keep the show trundling along the road. But it's impossible. It simply cannot work. It will eventually come apart in some form. When that happens, I don't know. But my prediction is that when it does happen, it will be cataclysmic.
I think you're right. I know you're right about the final statement because I agree with you completely on that. I'm going to throw some stuff at you, which is what I'm trying to figure out as to what's happening right now. There's a couple of things that are happening here that I think are actually a good thing. We've talked all the doom and gloom. We've talked all the terrible things. Now let's talk about where for lack of a better term, to use an Obama term, the green shoots come from. We have the Biden-Putin summit, where when we really sit down and think about it, and the Russians just yesterday, unveiled their latest, their answer to the F-35, which no one saw coming.
No.
Right? Except that I do, and now I saw that. I was talking to one of my regulars, Mike Stoyanovich, yesterday in email, because he and I, and he's a Serb that is really, really quite smart and quite savvy. So Stoyanovich and I were chatting yesterday behind the scenes, and he sent me that link, and I said, "What 5 will get you 10 that Shoigu put that plane on the table at Geneva." There's no way that he didn't do that in order to finally put to bed. What's that?
What is this plane? What's it called?
It's Russia's answer to the F-35 stealth fighter.
Yeah, this is it. The Americans have had 2 5th-generation fighters, the F-22 and the F-35, and the Russians have been publicly showing for a long time now their answer to the F-22, which is the Sukhoi 57. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, completely take everybody by shock, they suddenly produced, out of a hat, an entirely new fighter jet.
Oh, by the way, we just had this sitting in the corner.
Exactly, which has clearly been under development for ages, but was kept completely secret. And it's taken the world of, the defense world by storm. Right. And it begs many questions how they were able to conceal it for so long.
Because the F-35 is terrible. I know that much.
This isn't terrible.
No, this is the opposite. This is the opposite of terrible.
I would imagine so, because Russian weaponry is really great.
And here's the other thing. It also, remind yourself here, look, dudes, for a long time, my base case about China was that China just wants the United States off their back. Leave me be. Let's break the world up into component parts. You can have the West. We can have the East. We're gonna let's deconflict Central Asia. Blah blah. And of course the Americans in Davos said no. Now with Xi Jinping, China's a different animal. They're a much more aggressive power, and it's taken me a long time to come to this conclusion. Because I've resisted it for a long time, because I wanted to make sure that the read was, and this is again why I get back to, what's wrong with a lot of people within our space, our commentary space, that their blind spots, their imprinting, their inflexibility of worldview is keeping them from seeing what's happening. Xi Jinping is not a Chinese panda bear, okay? He's a grizzly bear, okay? He's a dragon. It's a different game here. Davos creating a weak power vacuum at the head of the United States, at the top of the United States government, at war with itself, obsessed with putting down domestic terrorism and keeping the United States from breaking apart, gives Xi license to go after Taiwan, which is the single point of failure for the entire global economy.
Yeah.
Because without TMSC, and without that whole industrial park that is Taiwan's culture, there is no more advancement in chip design, period.
No.
The entire global economy stagnates. Now, do you think these savvy Russians, Lavrov, Shoigu, Putin, blah, 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 that brain trust, while they publicly state our relationship with China has never been better, they don't say it's unbreakable.
Oh, no.
They don't say anything along those lines. They're not dumb. This new plane is a warning to China as well. Don't get too uppity. Don't think you understand the way the world works. Okay, so let's not, that they're allied now, but at some point in the future, Russia and China will be back at each other's throats if Xi oversteps. Okay, so Putin understands this, which is why he went to Geneva and allowed Biden to save face. Because you cannot have a devastated Europe, a devastated United States, because then he gets subsumed by China. Okay, so Putin is always about global stability, guys. Stability of oil prices, stability of countries. It's always, and then allow change to happen organically. and allow people to find their new niche and their new place, even within OPEC, which is an organization that does not serve his interests at all.
No.
You know what serves Russian interests in oil? Breaking OPEC and taking over and truly taking it over. And yet he's still trying to keep the Saudis from imploding by allowing the price of oil back into the 60s so that they don't go bankrupt. Okay, but he could bankrupt them tomorrow.
Yeah.
Put 2 more billion barrels of oil on the market tomorrow, and the Saudis are bankrupt. I know I'm getting lost in the weeds here, but let's back up and think about where we are then. So the situation in Europe is you have to. Where do we start? Actually, I'm sorry. God. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I lost my fucking train of thought.
Okay.
Cut this out.
I think, Tom, you've earned it after I don't know how many hours of videos, right? This is the first time I recall you've lost your train of thought, right? Yeah. What he was talking about was Putin meeting with Biden to allow Biden to save face. That the plane is also a message. I think it's the SU-57. I'll look up on more on it later, right? Is also a message to China to not step out of line.
Right. Absolutely. Going back to the Biden-Putin summit, I think is the pivotal moment here. And to go back to the financial markets is also to understand why I think there's a functional split between the Federal Reserve and the ECB. And I think that we're at that moment where that's the big thing. One, Putin understands the big game, everything about the big game. And at two, I think even Biden, to a lesser extent, understands that he can't start a war with China. And if he does so, then the United States is toast. Wall Street is telling him this.
That's not Biden himself, but his nurse.
I mean, and that ultimately, that there's going to have to be that no one is dumb enough to believe that, now that this cat's out of the bag, that they want the United States and China to fight. Now everybody's trying to get out of that fight. Okay. And unfortunately, I have something on the horizon for you, which is bad, which is that the Republicans are going to take 50 seats in the House in 2022. And there's an odds-on bet that Donald Trump will become Speaker of the House, which is what I predicted or said he should do.